our history, the true history of these islands and its people, which affords us this right to this day to say to the world that we are human beings and we deserve to be treated such as human beings. And what makes us Kanaka? So I'm going to just freestyle. I'm not going to do any fancy PowerPoints today. Freestyle for about an hour, and hopefully at the end, any questions, comments, throw it in. And I kind of going to try and connect to what's kind of going on today. When we talk about this reawakening that you see going on within our communities, it's part of a long history of struggle that has gone on. But in many ways, it's really no different, especially for Kanaka, that we've always kind of been this way also. So you can look at, even today, you hear people using the terms Aloha Aina or or Aloha Aina. Yeah, the word aloha, we all know, aloha, simply to love. But it's way more deeper than the English idea of love. Yeah, it's to have empathy, compassion, it's willing to give and share without expecting anything back. The love you may have romantic. It might be especially the kind of greatest love you would have, a grandchild being loved by the grandparent, or a parent to their own children. That love in which you would do anything for the betterment and welfare of that other human being. See, that's true love. That's true aloha. Aloha is something you cannot pay $4.99 for. Aloha is something you cannot go pretend to do at some fancy hotel. Aloha is something that you're willing to give, because from the giving itself, that's what life is all about. Life, in fact, is a sense of giving. And so for our people, this is really at the core of who we are. And I will share this one story. I remember Uncle Eric Ananao, one of my teachers from Miloli'i. And I was doing a talk somewhere, I can't remember, and after the talk, some elder person came by and he was trying to give me something, I think a necklace or something, but of high value. And I was like, oh no, I cannot take that. I cannot take it. And I just looked over, and Uncle Eddie just gave me the eye. He just looked at me. And I said, oh, I better take the gift then. So what did Uncle Eddie? He never did say nothing. He just looked. And sometimes he get that, uh-huh. And I took the gift. And he told me after, he goes, Kaleikoa, you got to remember, what makes us Hawaiian is that we give. And when you stop other people from giving, you're actually stopping them from being a Kanaka. And so I always remember that lesson in how he saw. Really what makes us special in many ways is that, yeah, we give. Sometimes we give. We give too much, it sounds like. But that's our nature. And I'm going to argue later on. That's a higher level of humanity and thinking that we all must remember. So let's go think about some meanings that Aloha Aina. Yeah, the Tao means land. Well, we clearly know. You got to understand the meaning of where Aina comes from. Yeah, the basic meaning, that which feeds you, provides you life, sustenance. Then you look at the Polynesian meaning of the word Aina. The ancient meaning itself, coming from the word kainga. And for kainga, what does kainga mean in Polynesian languages? It's a familiar relation, it's family. So you can see even in Polynesian, what we call land, or Aina, has a deeper meaning, which is of course family, the idea, the land itself. We have this familiar relationship. In the same way you are of a family, in that same way you are of that land. So that teaches us something about how we saw who we are as Kanaka. We are of the land itself. Very different than the kind of meanings that have been imposed upon our people. And then the word oya'i'o, which means truth, to be genuine, real. And those words, aloha aina oya'i'o, were famous words that were spoken during the time of the so-called overthrow. and the purported so-called annexation of the Hawaiian Islands, when our people called out to identify who we were as Kanaka, as Aloha Aina, the true lovers of the land, the meaning of patriotism. But think about how we said what a patriot was. A true patriot was that, in fact, you loved the land itself. So one of the things I always talk about today, real simply for me, what is the politics of today? How do we live and be like our kupuna? And I say, anytime we fight for the benefit of the water, or the land, or agricultural lands, or the ocean, or the reefs, you generally fight for our people. Because who are the first Kanaka? Who are the first Hawaiians? The Aina itself, that we come from. So when you look at what's happening today, this rebirth in many ways, this remembering, this restoring of this identity of Aloha Aina Oia Iko is nothing new. All we're doing is journeying back to somewhere we've been before. And that's why it's been very easy to understand what is this about. And we must also understand in this context the kinds of struggles that are going on, especially in my island, whether we're fighting for the return of the waters into our streams that have been diverted for over 100 years in some places. On West Maui, you have 31 streams. 29 of them were fully diverted for decades. It's not a century. In fact, the only two that are not diverted is Makamaka'ole and Kahakuloa. Think about that environmental crime that has been going on. The death of the land, the death of the reef system. How many sea creatures and freshwater creatures, not even counting our rights as a people. That environmental crime is something that continues on to this day. So one of the things I always tell people, when you think about, and I get this struggle sometimes even with so-called environmentalists who worried about changing light bulbs and sometimes, getting the cans, which is all important. But if you're not talking about putting the water back in the streams, you're talking superficial stuff. If you're not really talking about returning the water, or laikawai, which is life, then you're really not talking about protecting the environment. It might make you feel good in some very superficial way in the things you're doing. But if you're not involved in the politics to protect our agricultural lands, for example, which have been grabbed and taken by these transnational, multinational corporations like Monsanto and others who come to Maui, who come to Hawaii. Hawaii is the largest open field testing for these industrial, so-called agriculturalist chemical corporations. And only recently they finally admitted, yes, they were poisoning us, and they knew it. And of course, the politicians like Roz Baker from Maui, Senator Roz Baker, go, oh, if I only knew. Yeah, your hand was out for far too long, and you always knew. The people told you over and over. What kind of degradation and damage has already been done to those soils, to the water sources, to the reef system? What kind of damages are going to happen to our kids and grandkids in the future? So for me, it's always been clear. When I talk about politics of the land, for me, it's very clear to me who we're fighting for, which is us ourselves, the people of this land.